Hey everybody, Jeff here with Flow. Today I want to talk about how Flow helps you work with data from multiple data sources and get everything organized and ready to go so that you don't have to think about how you get timestamps to match or even what type of queries you would have to write to access data in SQL databases. So I've got my Flow config opened up and I'm ready to really start to build here. I'm going to use two different databases for this example. I'm going to use our Flow Historian Simulator, as well as a MES database that we've built for demo purposes. So you've probably seen me work with some of these databases before in other videos, but if not, I'll go ahead and get you familiar with some of the data we'll be looking at. In our system, we have an MES solution that is providing us things like work order and SKU, and we also have a simulator for a historian that is giving us a Acme juice factory. So if we take a look at the juice factory, we'll see under the packaging area, I've got a state tag that represents my filler. It's a state tag that moves from an idle state of 0 to a setup stage of 10. I run in state 20, and then I go into CIP in state 30. So it's an integer for every state change. Now, also in my system, I have my MES database. My MES database is where I want to be able to look at work orders as they've changed and be able to compare that to my state tags. Now, you'll notice that when I'm browsing the MES, you wouldn't expect to see this type of format. That's because when we first connected to this database, we did a mapping of that database and we added this name structure so that I can interact with this database like it was a historical tag-based system. And this makes it really easy for me to be able to just browse it and see the work order number without having to write SQL queries. It's a real game changer to empower your people to be able to use your data when they don't really necessarily know how to browse those systems or even have access to those systems. But Flow's doing something else here as well. Flow is giving us this data in a way that everything will just line up and make it easier for me. I don't have to try to figure out when that state changed from 0 to 10, what was the work order number. Instead, you'll see as I move over and look at this data in a table format, which I'm able to do here inside of my data preview tool. When I look at this in a table format, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on a specific period of data now. So my left edge is at 9:13 in the morning, and my right edge is just past noon. By switching to my table view, we're going to be able to see the raw data for both the work orders and my state tag. Okay, so my left edge of my sample is at 9:13. And I get 9:13 then as my first timestamp in the table. Now, I don't actually have a value change for either state or the work order at 9:13. So that means that Flow is going to provide me the last known value for both the state and the work order for that timestamp. And Flow carries that forward when it makes the query to the actual data source itself. So I didn't have to handle that in any way. I just told Flow what the start period was, and Flow looks backwards in all data to get the previous value and carry it forward for the first value of that period. And then to establish the next timestamp, Flow's going to do the exact same thing. It's going to look to see what changed, and the next thing to change was the state tag. And it takes that timestamp, 9:14, and then carries forward the previous known value of the work order. So now I have perfect alignment for this row for the 9:14 timestamp. I know exactly what both of my values were at that change. And then we do the exact same thing on the next row. On the next row, the state change of 30 was at 9:32 and 5 seconds, and we carried forward the work order number again. In the next row, it's the work order that changes. And so the unique timestamp when the work order changed was 10:18 and 40 seconds. The state was carried forward. The state then changes back to 0 at 10:46. The work order is carried forward, and then we get another state change and another work order change. See how easy it is when the data is just aligned the way that you need it to be able to work with it? And that's exactly what Flow does for you. Now, we don't do this for all of the data we're connected to. Instead, the trigger for that is when we actually build out the model and we associate the data to the model. So let's build Folsom. Let's go ahead and set up a metric for packaging. And then as I bring both of the work order over and represent it as a tag, and I bring the machine state over and represent it as a tag, now those tags are linked to my model. Flow hasn't duplicated the data by any means. We're going to let the data rest in its original source, but when we have events or we have a hourly KPI, that's the exact process we're going to go through to bring that data into the model from the sources, have it ready to work with, and then execute the rules of the model. Now, let's actually take a look at this MES tag work order. Notice now when I open it up, I've got a wide range of that history. I can actually, again, query it and show the data without replicating it by expanding my time periods. But I want to show you the actual query that was written for me because of that original definition file that got created when we attached Flow to this system and then said, hey, here's a data source. It's our MES data source, and we did a mapping of that data source. That meant that we worked with someone who understood the schema. We built an artificial namespace for browsing, and then we matched all of the tables and all of the columns together so that you wouldn't have to write this query every time you worked with data. Makes it really easy, and it makes it highly available now to people of all different skill levels across my operation. Hey, I hope this video is helpful for you. If it was, would you consider sharing it with somebody else in your organization? We'll go ahead and also make some recommendations here at the end of videos that you might like to see as well. If you have any questions, feel free to email us, information@flow-software.com. Thanks.